Until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. 2 centuries ago, a significant portion of Argentina's population, about one-third, was of African descent. Over time, this demographic drastically changed, leading to a predominantly European ancestry in the present-day Argentine population. This shift was largely influenced by a deliberate and systematic effort rooted in discriminatory beliefs. As a result, the rich history and contributions of African Argentines have often been overlooked or forgotten in the country's narrative. Today, Argentina is known as one of the most Europeanized countries in South America, a stark contrast to its diverse racial composition 2 centuries ago. To place this in context, there is a clear absence of black players in the Argentine national football team, which contrasts with that in countries like Brazil or Colombia, where there's a significant representation of Afro-descendants in national teams. The tango, an iconic and globally recognized dance, is a profound and enduring legacy of African Argentines, deeply ingrained in the cultural identity of Argentina. The African influence in tango is evident in its rhythmic complexity, its emphasis on body isolation, and the intricate, syncopated footwork. These elements reflect the African tradition of dance as a form of storytelling and emotional expression. Over time, tango evolved to incorporate elements of European music and dance, becoming more ballroom-ready. However, at its core is deeply rooted in the African Argentine experience. From the 16th to the 19th century, nearly 200,000 Africans were forcibly brought to Argentina and enslaved. Much like the situation in neighboring Brazil, many of these individuals originated from the ancient Kingdom of Congo, a Portuguese colony. The horrific practice of enslaving black people played a significant role in the early economic development of Argentina, particularly in its capital, Buenos Aires, which was then Spanish colony. Enslaved Africans were often subjected to grueling labor on the lands owned by Christian priests, where they worked in sugarcane fields and on ranches under extremely harsh conditions. In addition to the physical toll, the enslaved Africans faced a cultural and spiritual erasure. They were frequently forced to interbreed as part of a deliberate effort to increase the enslaved population and thus reduce dependency on imports from Africa. This process was part of a broader attempt to suppress their African heritage. As with the treatment of enslaved people in other parts of the Americas, they were stripped of their languages, names, spiritual practices, and cultural identities. In 1810, Argentina declared its independence from Spain. At that time, official records indicated that nearly 30% of the country's population was of African descent. This community, largely impoverished, disproportionately suffered during outbreaks of cholera and yellow fever, which ravaged the population. Moreover, the Argentine authorities, showing little regard for their lives, frequently sent black soldiers to the most dangerous front lines in wars. This led to a high casualty rate among them. For instance, in the Battle of Saipe in 1815, out of 320 Argentine casualties, including deaths, captures, and injuries, about 1,000 were African. These high mortality rates from disease and war significantly contributed to the decline of the black population in Argentina. Travel accounts from English visitors like Gillespie and Hay in the early 19th century suggest that Europeans were actually a minority at the time, with a majority population of mixed-race individuals, blacks, and Amerindians. Furthermore, the substantial demographic and political presence of the black community in Argentina led to a deliberate effort to diminish their influence. During the political conflict between Federalists and Unitarians, a decision was made to reshape Argentina into a predominantly white country. This decision marked a significant turning point in the nation's demographic history, influencing the racial composition that we see in Argentina today. The political landscape of Argentina in the 19th century was significantly influenced by the contrasting ideologies of the Federalists and the Unitarians. The Federalists believed in distributing power across different regions of the country and garnered substantial support from the black community. In contrast, the Unitarians, who were primarily based in Buenos Aires and comprised mainly of the white elite, sought to centralize power and were openly hostile towards the black population, preferring to distance themselves entirely. Juan Manuel Rosas, a Federalist leader and president of Argentina, granted limited rights and assistance to the African community, primarily to secure their political support. However, these concessions fell short of providing full equality, serving more as a means to retain their votes rather than genuinely improving their social standing, drawing parallels to some modern political strategies. When the Unitarians came to power in 1852, after Rosas's 22-year rule, they brought a shift in the country's racial policies. Influential figures like Sarmiento, Alberti, and Ingenieros subscribed to and furthered contemporary racist theories, which were widespread in the white-dominated global context of that era. They perceived black individuals as subhuman, barbaric, and inferior, while idealizing white people as civilized, superior, and virtuous. This dangerous ideology advocated for the systematic reduction of the black population in Argentina in favor of a predominantly white society, reflecting deeply ingrained racial prejudices of the time. In 1853, Argentine President Domingo Sarmiento enacted a law encouraging white European immigration to the country. By 1950, this policy had led to the arrival of around 7 million Europeans, predominantly from Italy and Spain. This influx, similar in approach to the White Australia policy, significantly diminished the once substantial African minority in Argentina. Affected by prevailing Eurocentric views and a societal narrative that often portrayed them negatively, many in the African Argentine community sought to whiten their future generations. This drive was influenced by various factors, including the desire to escape the stigma attached to their race, the distorted portrayal of African history, and the aspiration to gain the advantages associated with being white in a racially biased society. The decline in the number of black men, largely due to wartime casualties, also led many black women to marry these European immigrants, who were predominantly male. The reduction of the African Argentine population was so effective that by the 1895 census, there were comments anticipating the emergence of a beautiful new white race in Argentina. This change was not only due to interracial marriages, but also to a lack of collective awareness and action within the African Argentine community. Many did not fully grasp the extent of the challenges they faced or form a strong, unified front to protect their interests and ensure their survival. Instead, there was a tendency to focus on immediate pleasures, like dancing and entertainment, while their cultural identity gradually diminished. Ultimately, this combination of external pressures and internal dynamics led to the African Argentines being absorbed into the broader population through a process of miscegenation, effectively disappearing as a distinct group. Today, a very small portion of Argentina's population, just 0.5%, identifies as having African ancestry. A significant number of these individuals are recent immigrants or descendants of immigrants from neighboring countries like Brazil and Uruguay. The number of people who can trace their heritage back to the original African population in Argentina is even smaller. As a result of this demographic shift, there's a common perception in Argentina that overlooks the historical presence of black people and the reality of slavery in the nation's past. This perspective tends to focus on a narrative that emphasizes Argentina's white and European roots, ignoring the significant contributions and existence of the African-descended population. This phenomenon isn't just about the physical decline in the number of people of African descent. It also involves a forgetting or overlooking of their historical role and impact. The contributions and experiences of African Argentines have, to a large extent, been erased from the national consciousness, leading to a skewed understanding of the country's true multicultural and diverse history.